Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, with a look at the new LG G Flex 2, the sequel from last year's bendable, flexible, and curved smartphone. So this time the display is a bit smaller, 5.5 inches versus 6 inches, but it's 1080p instead of 720p. This is also the first smartphone to feature the new Snapdragon 810 processor, which will be the big processor this year. So this is actually a dual quad-core processor. One is clocked at 1.5 GHz, the other is clocked at 2 GHz. The CPU is paired with an Adreno 430 GPU, and we have 16 gigs or 32 gigs of internal storage with a micro SD card slot that supports 128 gigs. Now you have to keep in mind, with 16 gigs of storage, you have 2 gigs of RAM. With 32 gigs of storage, you have 3 gigs of RAM. So go for 32 gigs if you can. The main camera is 13 megapixels with optical image stabilization and 4K video recording, along with laser-assisted autofocusing. The front-facing camera is 2.1 megapixels, which is good for 1080p at 30 frames per second. In terms of software, this is powered by Android 5.0 or Lollipop, which is the latest version at the time of filming, but of course it is skinned by LG, which is very similar to the skin on the LG G3. The other standout characteristic of the LG G Flex is the self-healing skin on the back of the phone, which is carried over here but improved. So the idea is that if you lightly scratch the back of the phone, it will heal over time or with the application of heat. So if you drop your phone, it's not going to heal itself, but if you kind of slide it across the table, the idea here is that those scratches will be minimized over time. Now, thanks to 28mobile.com, I was able to get my hands on this phone a bit earlier than its launch in the US so I could get a review up in anticipation of the phone's official launch. So if you want to pick up your phones earlier, check out 28mobile.com. They'll import them for you. Alright, so let's go ahead and unbox our phone here. As you can see, even the packaging alludes to the curve. So let's go ahead and lift the lid. And inside is our phone. As you can see, it's curved in the box as well. You pick it up. There's your phone, and it's a pretty familiar size here. It's very similar to the LG G3, same screen size, 5.5 inches, very minimal bezels as well, so it's pretty compact for its screen size. Feels really comfortable in the hand right away. The curve isn't too dramatic here, but of course it is noticeable. We're going to take a look at what that curve does for you. On the back, you see that very smooth, glossy finish. This is available in 2 colors. I have the gray version, but you can get a red version. So let's go ahead and peel off the plastic here. Not too much. We have a little plastic on the front covering the glass, which is Gorilla Glass 3. So we peel this off here. So we do have a curved glass. We also have some plastic covering our back keys here. This is one of my favorite features of the LG G3, are the buttons on the back of the phone, which are really easy to reach and much harder to unintentionally press, like most smartphones, which place them along the side. We also have these little strips of plastic covering the sides here, so let's go and peel those off. Now, this is a Korean version of this phone, but the version you get will basically look and perform the same, but of course this is branded with the Korean telco and LTE-A, which is a technology not available in the US, but is available in South Korea. Let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging contents here again, remembering that this is the Korean version, so some of the accessories will apply to that market and not the rest of the world. We also have our micro USB 2.0 charging cable, which is standard for every phone. Now we have a 2-pin wall adapter, obviously not for the US market here, but this is one of LG's fast chargers to speed up charging of the battery in your phone. We also have LG's Quad Beats 2 headphones. I'm pretty familiar with these. They're really nice headphones. They actually have metal earpieces with an inline remote control and microphone, as well as replacement ear tips in here. You'll find them in the bag, so if you want to find the right size, you got plenty of options here. So you can see the inline remote control, very chunky inline remote control microphone, pretty durable and easy to operate. And as you can see, this is sort of that spaghetti ribbon cable, which means it's less likely to tangle in your pocket. So again, pretty nice headphones. Alright, so let's get back to the phone here. So the first thing I want to do is pop off this back panel to reveal what's underneath it. Now, you can replace this back panel if it scratches or anything like that, but you can't pop this off to gain access to the battery because it is sealed in. This battery is a lithium polymer battery, which means it can be curved to the shape of the phone to maximize the space here to provide enough battery juice for the large display and the processing power. So this is 3,000 milliamp hours despite this really curved design. So the reason you want to pop this off is to gain access to the micro SIM tray and the micro SD card slot. So unfortunately, no nano SIM here, but this is a stack tray. So basically, you install the micro SD card on the top slot and the micro SIM below that. All right, so let's go ahead and reinstall that back panel. Snaps on pretty easily and securely. First thing I want to do is press that power button toward the center so we can boot it up for the first time and take a close look around. Now, as soon as it boots up, you can see right away again a nice OLED display with those deep blacks and those bright, vivid colors. All right, so let's take a close look around. So again, this is a 5.5-inch OLED display, which is quite a bit better in terms of its resolution from last year. 1080p versus 720, good for 403 pixels per inch versus the 256 from last year. So big improvement on screen sharpness here. And obviously you can see it is curved, and with that OLED technology, you can see there is very little off-axis distortion with those very deep blacks and bright vivid colors. Looks really nice, and the bezels are pretty small and compact, somewhat similar to the LG G3, although this is still a bit taller than the LG G3. Up top, you'll find your earpiece, the 1080p 2.1 megapixel front-facing camera, along with an ambient light sensor and an LED notification light. Down below, we have our LG branding. Nothing else here, no off-screen Android keys. Of course, everything is on screen here. Now, along the back, we have our slightly protruding 13 megapixel camera with optical image stabilization, along with our laser AF system. Again, this records 4K video, and I'll post samples in this video. You also have your dual tone LED flash on the back. We have our back keys, so we have our volume up and down, as well as our power on and off button. Now, along the back, we have our loud and clear mono speaker. Of course, it faces toward the back of the phone, which isn't the best orientation for watching media, but it does sound pretty loud. At the bottom of the phone, we'll find a micro USB 2.0 port, a headphone jack, along with a microphone. At the top of the phone, we'll find an IR LED blaster for controlling AV equipment. Of course, the software needed is included, and then you have another microphone. So with all the buttons on the back of the phone, that frees up the size of the phone. So nothing along the sides of the phone that allows them to really thin it out and round it so it's nice and comfortable. Now, I have to say I'm really impressed by the design of the LG G Flex 2. It feels really nice in the hand with that curved design, with those glassy, smooth surfaces that feel pretty seamless. And along the back, you can see the back panel kind of has this faux metal finish, which looks really nice. It really picks up the light. Now, this back panel, again, features that sort of self-healing coating. You can actually see the seam of the coating if you look really closely at the edge of the back panel. So you'll see it, for example, around the ports along the bottom. You'll really see it here. You'll see the exposed bits around those ports. But generally speaking, I really like the finishes and the feel of the phone. Now let's take a look at our interface. Once again, we have that knock-on effect that allows us to double tap the lock screen to wake it up. So we can see our lock screen, we can see our notifications, our time, and that sort of thing. You can also just swipe to unlock. It takes you right to the home screen. Also on that lock screen, you'll see we have quick shortcuts to popular apps, which you can modify under settings here. So you can change this if you want, and I'll show you that later in this video. But of course, if you want to launch any one of these, just tap and hold on it and swipe up, unlocks directly into that app. Now we have another feature here that allows you to peek at your notifications and the date and time. So all I have to do is swipe down on the screen and you'll see toward the top of the screen your information. Now I can also relock the device just by double tapping the screen. This works on the home screen as well. So if you swipe up here, double tap on the screen, locks the device. Or if you're within an app here, such as this quick memo app here, if you double tap the status bar up here, it'll lock the phone for you. Now taking a look at the home screens, you can see we have something called Smart Bulletin toward the left, which gives you some tips on using your device as well as your LG health information, which this device will record when you're using it. Now you can see that when we pinch in and out, you can manage your home screens here, so you can rearrange them if you want, just tap and hold on them. Of course, you can also delete the home screens you don't want. You can select what you want to be the home screen just by tapping the home icon in the upper right corner and that sort of thing. Now, if you don't want the Smart Bulletin home screen, you can just pinch in and out here and drag and drop it to remove it. Alternatively, you can also go to your settings here. So if we go to settings, go to the home screen right here, you can turn off Smart Bulletin like so, and you'll see it will disappear. Now you can get to additional controls by tapping and holding the home screen. And this brings up our app selection, our widgets, and our wallpaper. So with the apps, you can cycle between your apps and drag and drop them to any home screen you want here, just by kind of repositioning them like so. Now, if you want to remove an app you've added, all you have to do is take it up to remove here, or you can go to app info for more information. This allows you to see how much resources it's taking up and where it's located. We also have our app drawer. As you can see, some of them are folders, so you can manage them. You can order them in different ways. You can see your widgets. You can search your entire selection here instead of poking through for the apps you want. And you have your editing options in the upper right corner. So you can view apps by their name, their download date, or custom, so you can custom arrange them. You can show large icons here, which allows you to see them in a larger format if you prefer, or show small icons as I prefer, so you can see more on the screen. You can also hide certain apps. So for example, if you don't want to uninstall an app or you can't uninstall an app, all you have to do is hide it like so, and it'll disappear from view. You can also go to edit or uninstall apps, and all the apps that are eligible for uninstallation will be highlighted with this red X. Now, of course, you can drag and drop apps from the app drawer, but if you want to folder apps within the app drawer, you'll have to do a few other things here. So let's go ahead and remove that app and go back to our app drawer. First thing we'll need to do is make sure that we're viewing apps in our custom setting, and then we can go to edit, uninstall or hide apps, and now we can drag and drop apps over each other to folder them or to move them around. Speaking of foldering, you do have some editing options here. So for example, you can change the name and you can change the folder color. We also have additional editing options to customize your screen. One of the things we can do is resize the folder here, and you can see they can get quite big. So if you want to see all your apps within that folder, you can do that. You can also replace the icon here. All you have to do is tap and hold on one of these apps. You get to this little editor icon in the upper right corner, and then you can select one of the icons they provide you, or you can add a new one. We also have our drop-down notification shade, which shows us all of our quick setting toggles up top, and we'll get to those in just a minute. You can see your Qslide apps. Now, Qslide apps are basically pop-out apps, and only certain apps apply here. So one of them is the internet browser here. So with the Qslide app, you basically get this windowed view that allows you to move it around and resize it and that sort of thing, and you're limited to one at a time here. So you can go to full screen, you can change the opacity here like so, or you can just slide it to the right edge of the screen or left edge of the screen like so, and you'll get this little kind of thumbnail pop-out here, which kind of floats in the background. It allows you to do other things while that thumbnail is quickly accessible here. Now, getting back to our drop-down shade, you can also see we have our brightness controls here, and you can toggle between various settings. So you can go to minimum, you can go to 50%, you can go to 90%, and anything above 90% is a custom configuration, and you'll see a little C icon appear toward that little icon. You can also select auto mode if you want. And then we also have our controls here for volume. Now under volume, if you tap that gear icon, you can granularly control every volume setting from ringtones to notification sounds and more. Of course, you can also hit the volume controls on the back here, and that brings up the control, which allows you to tap that gear icon to, again, regain access to those controls. Now with these notifications, of course, you can swipe them out of the way, tap them to open them, or you can clear them all. Taking a look at our quick settings, one of them is QMemo Plus, which does a screen grab and brings up an editor, which allows you to annotate your screen grab. You also have quick toggles for Wi-Fi, sound, data, rotation lock, Bluetooth, and location. We have T-Action, which is actually carrier bloatware. Hotspot, syncing, NFC, you can toggle on and off. You have your Qslide apps, which can turn on and off. We have Q Remote, which allows you to turn on your remote controller, which uses the IR blaster at the top of the phone to control your AV equipment. So this appears conveniently within your drop-down shade, so you can access this anywhere. You have Q Voice, which is kind of a voice assistant app, very similar to Siri or Google Now. We have airplane mode. We have Smart Shear Beam, which you can turn on and off. You can turn off or turn on your LED indicator. We have a battery saver mode, Mirrorcast, which allows you to wirelessly broadcast the display of this device and the audio to a compatible device like my Samsung Smart TV. We can invert the colors as well for better readability, and then you can modify the arrangement of these apps. All you have to do is kind of move them around, or you can turn them off and on. If you don't want to see all of them, all you have to do is turn them off here. Now, if you tap and hold any one of these quick setting toggles, this will bring you to the control panel. So, for example, under battery saver mode, you can turn this on immediately or set it for 5% or 15% here. If you go back, you get 2 additional controls. Taking a look at our Android keys, down here, of course, we have recent apps, which again takes on that Android 5.0 lollipop theme, which allows you to swipe to dismiss them or bring them forward. We also have dual window mode, which is a contribution from LG here. This allows you to open up 2 apps at once. So for example, if I want YouTube on one side and then Chrome on the other, just drag and drop them, and there you go. So now I can watch video on one side of the device while browsing the web on the other.
Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, as well as...
Now if I exit the dual window mode, all I have to do is go back to recent apps, go to dual window, and you'll see we have recent here, which will bring up those 2 apps side by side again where you last left off. Now the recent apps button also acts as a menu button. Just tap and hold on it, brings up the menu relative to whatever you're looking at. Of course, that's different within the web browser versus the home screen. To get to Google Now, just swipe up on the home button, or you can swipe up on the recent apps button, or you can swipe up on the back button. It works the same. Next up is our settings panel. There's actually 2 views here. So we have this continuous list view, which puts everything on one page. And then you have your tab view, which gives you these little tabs to cycle through instead. Personally, I prefer this list view. So within the first category, we have our wireless networks, which includes share and connect. This allows you to turn off NFC, Smart Shear Beam, turn on media servers. So nearby DLNA devices can have access to the media on this device. We also have Mirrorcast, so it allows us to wirelessly broadcast audio and video from this device to compatible devices. We have LG PC Suite, which allows you to manage the media on your device by connecting it to a PC and using the included software. We also have our sound controls, pretty basic stuff. This allows you to change the vibration strength, volume, the sound profile. Now under notifications, we have our do not disturb settings, which are very useful. This allows you to change priority of certain actions so they can interrupt do not disturb functions. You can also schedule do not disturb for certain days or certain times. We have lock screen, so you can turn off notifications on the lock screen if you want, and you can change the behavior of notifications for certain apps. There are a few interesting things under display. Of course, we have brightness, screen timeout, the screen off effect, auto rotate, screen mode, which allows you to change whether you want standard, vivid, or natural. I've been using standard throughout the course of this review, so you get an idea of what the default is. We have our font type and font sizes. But really interesting here is home touch buttons. So you can change the button combination here, so you can customize this and add additional controls. So again, this is familiar from other LG devices. So we can bring up our notification drop down, our quick memo, and then we're limited to 5. You can't add Qslide and dual window mode. So as you can see down here, I can quickly bring up our drop-down shade like so. I can bring up quick memo if I want. So it does a screen grab and allows you to quickly annotate it. I'm not sure why that's useful, but that's there. You can also see we have our Qslide app. So it brings up all of our Qslide apps from this little pop-out here, which is a little different than the drop-down shade. But probably more useful is this dual window mode, which quickly brings up that dual window utility. Now this also allows you to rearrange these buttons here, so if you want these in a completely different orientation, you can. We can also change the color from white to black if you prefer. Personally, I prefer the white background. We can also hide the home touch buttons within certain apps here. So for example, we can enable this for Chrome. So if we go to the Chrome browser now, those buttons will hide and you can swipe up to gain access to them. Now, as you can see, if you do not hide the buttons, they do take up some screen real estate, so it's kind of nice to have that option. Another option hidden at the bottom of our display settings is auto adjust screen tone. If you turn this on, this will adjust screen brightness depending on what you're looking at. Under home screen, we have additional options such as our home screen style. So we have two options here. So we have home, which is the standard home screen. We also have easy home, which is kind of like a grandma mode. Basically, it simplifies the interface, makes the icons and text bigger. We can also select custom themes here. So they've included the standard LG theme, but you can download additional themes from LG Smart World Store. Unfortunately, it's in Korean here, so I can't really navigate around to show you that. On the lock screen, this is where we can select our screen lock options, and one of them is the knock code. So we can select a custom knock code here, and what we're going to do here is go to next, and we're going to select a custom knock code like so. So again, it's basically 4 taps. So now if we go to the lock screen, you can actually tap like so to unlock the device. We also have Smart Lock, which is kind of interesting here, so we'll have to enter in our code here to gain access to it. But we can actually select trusted devices like a Android Wear device, so it automatically unlocks the device when it's connected. We also have trusted places, so we can select a GPS location, or you can use trusted faces, so it'll actually use your camera to scan for a face that is authorized to access the device. Another neat thing here is something called weather animation. So basically, it will reflect your weather conditions right on your lock screen using an animation of some sort. So for example, if it's snowing, you'll actually see snowfall on your lock screen. Now, if you do not have any security measures in place on the lock screen, you do have your shortcuts here. So if you go to settings, you'll actually see that appear under lock screen. And of course, you can go to your shortcuts here and modify which apps appear as shortcuts. So for example, if you want to adjust the messaging app to Hangouts, all you have to do is hit that gear icon and select Hangouts from your list. So here we go, select Hangouts, and you're good to go. We also have our gesture options, and one of them is answer an incoming call just by bringing the phone to your ear, which I think is very useful. You can also fade out the ringtone just by handling the phone from a flat surface. You can also silence an incoming call or snooze or stop an alarm by flipping it over. Same with pausing video playback. We have one-handed operations for certain keyboards, such as the dial keypad, the LG keyboard, or the lock screen. So if I enable these, and if we go to the dial pad here, so let's go to the phone here, you can see that the keyboard is now orientated either toward the left or right side, and all I have to do is tap this arrow here to flip it. And as you can see, this also works with the included QWERTY keyboard, although it does not work in landscape orientation, which makes sense. We also have smart cleaning, which will free up some space by deleting those unnecessary files. We also have some additional options under dual window. This is off by default, but we have something called split view that works with an email. So for example, if you open up a link or a attached file or something like that, it'll actually give you a split view without leaving the app, which is kind of useful. We also have our shortcut key, and this is on by default, but you can turn this off, but basically this allows you to use the volume controls on the back to activate certain apps. So one of them is the camera app, another is the quick memo app. So for example, if the screen is locked, just happen to hold the volume down button to quickly activate the camera. It takes you right to the camera. Same thing with the memo app, just happen to hold the volume up key, takes it to the memo app. You can also do a screen grab by hitting the power and volume down button at the same time. LG has also added this Smart Notice app here, so if you go up to app info, you can see what that's all about. But basically, this will show you all your calendar events in this little drop down. This will also show your current weather conditions and your date and time. Now, there are two modes in the camera app. There's the simple mode, which is a basic interface that allows you to tap anywhere on the scene to focus and snap the photograph at the same time. Of course, you can also bring up the shutter release here, which allows you to snap the photograph or tap anywhere to focus. Of course, you can also pinch in and out to zoom, and you can record video. So while recording video in 4K as I am right now, you can't snap photographs at the same time, but you can pause it, resume it, and stop it. Now you can switch to the front-facing camera just by swiping up here, and so there I am, and you can swipe down again to get back to the rear-facing camera. Now you can record both cameras at the same time here. You just have to switch the mode from auto to dual mode, and you get this little thumbnail here, which you can move around and resize. And when you tap on it, you can also switch between the front-facing and rear-facing. You also get this little pop-up here that allows you to adjust the border here. So you have split view 1, fish eye, star shape, heart shape, and more. Now the G Flex 2 picks up a feature from the LG G3, which allows you to take a selfie by waving your hand in front of the camera, making a fist, and performs a countdown. We also have this little slider here, which will actually soften any faces that are detected in the scene to kind of give them a more flattering look. Now, in terms of quality, this camera system is excellent. It's basically the same one from the LG G3. So we have quick and accurate autofocusing in all lighting conditions. It snaps photos really quickly. Images come out really crisp and clear with good exposure and color reproduction. And generally speaking, it's one of the better systems out there. In terms of video, of course, we have 4K video recording with optical image stabilization, which is an essential to get smooth 4K video out of any phone. And it delivers excellent results. We also have continuous autofocusing, which really benefits from the laser AF system here, which is able to find focus pretty quickly, although when it's searching for focus, it still can be noticeable and can be jarring here. But again, it's one of the better systems out there. Alright guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, testing out the front-facing camera on the LG G Flex 2, which is pretty decent here. This is a 2.1 megapixel camera. Lets in pretty good amount of light here, good exposure compensation, really sharp at 1080p video at 30 frames per second, and audio is pretty decent here. This is definitely one of the better front-facing cameras I've used on smartphones recently, but it's right up there with something like the iPhone or the Galaxy phones from Samsung. Taking a look at our Geekbench 3 scores, you can see pretty big gains here from the Snapdragon 805 and the LG G3 versus the 810 and the LG G Flex 2. Now, this is an octa-core, this is a quad-core, so obviously big gains with the multi-core score and more modest gains with a single-core score, but definitely a powerful phone. Now, I briefly want to compare the G Flex 2 to the LG G3. Now, they both are 5.5-inch devices. The G Flex 2 is a bit larger or a bit taller than the G3 because there's a bit more bezel space on the top and bottom, although both devices are pretty compact for 5.5-inch phones. The displays are very different technologies. We have an LCD IPS panel QHD display on the LG G3, which is much brighter. It's a little warmer in color temperature and much more pixel dense at 530 ppi versus the 403 on the G Flex 2. Now, the G3 is much more viewable outdoors than the OLED of the G Flex. Again, the OLED is a bit dimmer. The color temperature is also quite a bit cooler. This is especially noticeable when whites are on the screen. But there are many benefits of this P-OLED or polymer OLED display, including the fact that it can be bent and can flex, unlike an LCD panel. But of course, OLED is also darker with deep blacks with more vivid colors. Now, obviously, the big selling point for the LG G Flex 2 is its curved display. So what are the benefits of having a curved display? I think there are two of them. The biggest one for me is its ergonomics. It feels really nice in the hand to use and handle. It feels really nice when you're using it against your face. It just feels a lot more organic than using other phones, and it's something that jumps out right away when you're using the phone. It just feels really nice in the hand. But it's a fairly subtle curve. It doesn't make a huge difference here, but it's definitely unique. Now, the other big benefit here is just its unique design, and I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting a design that's a little different from all the other smartphones out there. So for a lot of people, this looks really neat. This is something they can show off to their friends and family and be kind of proud of because it's kind of a niche phone. There's not a lot of phones out there like it. Now, one of the benefits of this curved display is that when you lay it face down on a surface, the entire glass isn't touching the surface, just the top and bottom edges. So that's kind of reassuring. That means you're less likely to scratch the glass. Now, with flex in the name, of course, it does have to be able to flex, and indeed it does. You can actually flatten out the phone if you press toward the center face down. So there is some give to the design of this phone, and that's thanks to its plastic construction and the P-OLED display. Now in terms of battery life, with heavy use and the screen set to maximum brightness, I've been able to get about 4 hours of on-screen time, which is pretty average for smartphones. Now one of the issues I get a lot with this device is screen brightness throttling. So once the device starts heating up, it actually dials back screen brightness automatically. And if I try to go above the maximum here, which is right now at 90%, sometimes it's as low as 70%. I think it probably can go lower than that. But you can see it gives me a temperature warning, so it doesn't allow me to increase brightness, which can be a bit of a nuisance. It's definitely a drawback here, and it may have something to do with the Snapdragon 810 processor, but this may be something that can be fixed over time with updates, although I've gone through several updates already on this device and still no improvement on that situation. Now the other problem I find is that the back panel kind of squeaks and creaks and pops when you're handling the phone, and that's just the nature of this design. It's meant to be a little flexible, a little forgiving, but it does creak and squeak when you're just handling the phone, not necessarily when you're trying to bend it or anything like that, but it does kind of creak and pop when you're using it, which doesn't really feel as high quality as I'd like to see on a modern phone. Now in terms of performance, this is where the device tends to suffer the most. Even though we have high-end next generation internal specs in this device, it does tend to be laggy and can hang up on even the most basic operations like the keyboard or launching apps or waking up from sleep, that sort of thing. So unfortunately, lag is definitely a big story here. Hopefully software updates will improve this over time, but right now I find this phone to be kind of slow to use. So in the end, the LG G Flex 2 gives you top-end internal specs, a great-looking operating system powered by Android 5.0, a great camera system, pretty good battery life, and a unique design that feels a little special in the world of modern smartphones. But unfortunately, with creaky build quality, laggy software performance, and a display that's a little on the dim side, it's really hard for me to fully recommend this phone. So that's going to do for me in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.